We live? All right. Good evening and welcome to the Brevard City Council regular meeting. I want to thank everybody that's come here in person. I appreciate your coming to this part of local government, and also to everybody that is watching on our live stream. Before we really start the meeting, I want to introduce everybody sitting up here. On my far right, we've got our city attorney, Mac McKellar. Next to Mac, we've got City Councilman Lauren Wise. Next, we have City Councilwoman Pamela Holder. We've got Councilman Mac Morrow. I'm Mayor Maureen Kopoloff. On my left is our city clerk, Denise Hodgson. Next to Denise is Mayor Pro Tem and City Councilman Gary Daniel. Next to him is Councilman Aaron Baker. And on my far left is our city manager, Wilson Hooper. And with that, I would like to ask the Reverend Dr. Sherrod Kreisman from Brevard College if he would please come forward and give our invocation.
Let us pray. Our source, you who bring us to this space and gather us here, we are grateful. Grateful for the opportunity to lead as elected officials and to lead as community members. Bless this space, this meeting, the words that are discussed, the decisions that are made, and the conversations that are had. Bless this moment, our opportunity to stand in it and to serve for this community. So we thank you now for all that we offer, all that we bring, and we recognize we are blessed. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. And Reverend Kreisman, would you tell us a little bit about what you do at Brevard College? And I believe you're also the associate pastor at one of our Methodist churches.
You've got it. So I am the Dean of Spiritual and Religious Life at Brevard College. Serve as one of the associate pastors at Brevard First United Methodist, and I am a chaplain in the Air Force. So I get to jump in a lot of places and do a lot of things. And that is what I have the pleasure of doing. So thank you for asking.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us. We love hearing from our different faith groups. And,
My pleasure.
And thank you for being so active in our community.
Absolutely.
With that, I would like to ask everybody to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, honor, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you do have a quorum. All members are present.
Okay. Council, you got a copy of the draft agenda for this evening. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
Mayor, I'd like to add one item to new business, and that would be a resolution authorizing the city staff to apply for a Great Trails State Program grant for design and engineering of the remaining sections of the Esto Greenway.
Okay. Are there any other modifications to the proposed agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the modification that Mayor Pro Tem made?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The modified agenda is approved. Council, you were sent the minutes of the September 3rd, 2024 regular meeting. Are there any corrections or modifications to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. At this time, we will have public comment. During public comment, the public is invited to speak at this time on any topic unless it is a public hearing item on this agenda. We have no public hearing items on tonight's agenda. Anyone who wants to speak must register with the city clerk, which is what this sign-up sheet is. When it is your turn, step to the podium in front of City Council, state your name and address clearly, limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and avoid repetition. Direct comments to the full council, not to an individual council member or to staff. Groups are encouraged to appoint a spokesperson on their behalf. I will call people up in the order in which you signed up, and when you have 30 seconds left in your 3 minutes, I will give you a 30-second warning, and then when 3 minutes are up, I will call time, at which point please finish your sentence and sit down. Our first public speaker is Sean Walton. Sean Walton.
Good evening. My name is Sean Walton. My address is P.O. Box 6242 in Hendersonville, North Carolina. I would like to speak to you about the current difficulties occurring at the Brevard Police Department. Although I'm neither an employee of this agency nor a resident of Brevard, I have a vested interest in these matters, as I'm Lieutenant Kat Toomey's fiancée, and recent decisions are negatively affecting her home life and her work life. Additionally, currently I'm in my 30th year in law enforcement, and in my current job have habitually worked with the Brevard Police Department for the past 12 years. The current schedule of patrol, a modified Panama schedule, was recently forced upon the patrol division. This schedule was not asked for, nor were the patrolmen consulted before this change. The prior DuPont schedule provided for an 8-day break, which many families, including ours, scheduled our vacation. Patrolmen would also schedule training during this time as to not to burden their shifts with working short. It could be said that police officers could use their vacation as other city employees do, but in what other department do employees instead of management have to find a replacement for them when they take vacation? Officers have had to return from approved vacations due to these replacements not being available. This pool of replacements has become less and less with the short staffing in the patrol division, which is continuing as officers are leaving this agency and seeking other law enforcement job opportunities. With the new schedule, a directive was sent out that patrol officers would not work more than 4 days in a row. This winnows down the officers available to work for others even more. Making this pool of replacements even smaller is the fact that only the patrol division seems to be carrying this burden. The chief of police had a practice where all patrol shifts would be staffed with 4 officers. Now some patrol shifts have only 2 officers working at a time. This is an officer safety issue. This change in schedule seems to be retaliatory for a recent complaint filed with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. The schedule was implemented not only the same day that the police department was notified of this complaint, but within hours of it being notified. I know this because I'm the one who contacted OSHA. My fiance's workstation at the old police department downstairs, which included computers and monitors and other electronic equipment, had flooded during the rains of this summer. She had taken pictures and videos of running water coming down walls, over electrical outlets, and pooling around the chairs at these computer stations. When she notified her chain of command, their advice was, quote, limit their time in this working environment. This is the same advice given to patrol officers when a portion of the department was moved to the new police department due to mold and respiratory health issues. But patrol did not move and continued to work in that environment until recently. What would you have done if this was a family member of yours? Additionally, the current police administration has put out a schedule
30 seconds.
for cleaning the new police department to include cleaning the bathrooms. In conclusion, the city of Brevard police officers are your employees. You're supposed to protect them from these sort of issues, and I would ask that you look into these issues and the issues that others are going to address tonight. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Walton. Our next speaker is Tim Waldrop.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am not a resident of the city of Brevard. I live at 3225 Island Ford Road. But I did put in 30 years at the city of Brevard. Started out as a part-time patrol officer and retired as a lieutenant. During my career, we had a waiting list to be hired at the police department. I retired in 2008, and I'd say there were 14 to 15 officers waiting to come in when I retired. It's not that way anymore. 2 officers per shift is We went to 3 officers per shift in mid-'80s, 4 officers per shift in the early 2000s. And it's not just a club. Those officers are needed on the road. It is not safe for one officer to answer calls by himself. I don't know where the problem lies, but I have heard it from many officers. There's 3 or 4 here that were still here when I retired, so city council used to come out and ride with the officers. I think some of you who were on city council then can remember that. They knew what we were facing, and they actually cared about what we were facing and tried to do their best to help us. I'm not seeing that now, and I don't mean to disparage anyone here, but I am not seeing anyone standing up and trying to help the Brevard Police Department. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Waltrip. Our next speaker is Rick Harbin.
Hello, council. My name's Rick Harbin. I live at 418 Pisgah Drive, which is in the city of Brevard. I served at Brevard PD for the better part of 13 years. I recently retired in May of this year as a lieutenant. I love serving this city, and I feel that it is my duty to help in this matter. I urge you not to take these complaints, facts, and concerns lightly, as our ultimate goal is to make Brevard a better and safer place. Under the current administration, staffing issues are at an all-time low. This is not only a safety issue for the officers, but makes providing law enforcement services to the public at the expected levels very difficult. Excuse me. The lack of leadership at this department is appalling. In turn, as you can imagine, has significantly lowered the morale of the officers on duty, something that is important in this line of work. A sudden schedule change without the knowledge of the officers has recently raised concern. This change has been detrimental to the officers' well-being and family lives. Again, 2 things in this line of work that are significantly impactful on their daily lives. Under this leadership, the communication between agencies has deteriorated, making it difficult to better serve this community as a team from all angles. It is no secret that there are drug issues not only among this community, but the surrounding areas as well. Yet this leadership caused the removal of Brevard PD from the Narcotics Task Force. This causes less intel and action by the city for drug enforcement. This is highly important to better serve this city that we all love. I encourage you to please get input from the officers currently serving. Their livelihood, well-being, and the safety of Brevard are at risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harbin. Our next speaker is Vince Stone.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I was an officer here, had to retire prematurely due to some medical issues. Love my job. Biggest concern is safety. We're having that issue now, 2 officers to a shift. It's unsatisfactory. It needs to be corrected immediately. Morale in this department has went downhill. Not sure with everything that's going on with it, but I do know schedule being changed, going from the DuPont to the Panama. I'm not real familiar with the Panama, don't care. I worked 39 years rotating shifts, starting at Augusta, and then come here at the Sheriff's Department, then came here. And when I come to work here, the closer I got and had some medical issues, the worse it got. We had interim chief, Dean Galloway, and he was a good chief. People got along. We all did our jobs. We worked, had fun, along with the risks that we took when we put that uniform on. When he went out, things started changing. It started going downhill, and they've went downhill since then. And right now, it's at its worst, and it's embarrassing. It's bad enough that the officers have to deal with all the issues that we've dealt with over the last 4 years, defund the police and all the harassments and other issues that's going on. But now we're having to go out on patrol and work shorthanded and deal with complaints, and then come and deal with administrative issues. And I'd read an article, something about retaliation. I'm not sure what that's about, but there's no place for that here. We talk about people being bullied in school, and if there's retaliation going on in this department, that's bullying, and that needs to stop. Mold, that's another issue.
30
hard to
seconds, Mr.
It's
Stone.
hard to cover everything in 3 minutes that needs to be covered, unfortunately. And I'm trying to touch on some of the most important, and I will leave it at the fact of a safety issue for officers. And I thank you for your time. You have my number, address, phone number. If you need to talk to me, call me.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Our next speaker is Brendan McGaha.
Mayor, Council, I'd like to thank y'all for hearing from me today. I work for the North Carolina Police Benevolent Association. I travel the state working on issues like this. And if I'm here, there's typically somebody's reached out to me, it's brought me here, and that's the scenario here. I have met with Mr. McKellar and Mr. Hooper. I have found them both very good to work with. I think we may have disagreements on the progress made at this stage, but I have found them open to suggestions. But we are concerned about the men and women at the police department. Morale is especially low in the patrol division, and that is partially due to a schedule change that I believe you all received some information from me today on. While the new schedule hasn't been in effect but a couple of weeks, it's obvious on paper that it's not going to work for them. It gives them less time with their family. Taking a Friday when most families start their activities then and trade it for a Monday just doesn't make sense to anyone. It drastically affects the family and their weekend events. How patient should officers be when they see something that damages their lives so much? Officers already lose large amounts of time due to work, and any further loss is a huge deal to them that will cause officers to look other places. Officers in today's time have advanced degrees, and several can manage organizations themselves. The administration seems to have a parent-child mentality concerning the police department, and that prevents the development of a happy and healthy workplace. There seems to be a feeling that when someone stands up for themselves that they are retaliated against. I offered to employees for them to come today and watch this process and speak to y'all on matters of public concern, and they refused out of concerns for retaliation. These employees did communicate to me, though, they would be willing to sit down with Mr. Hooper or you all to talk about these issues. While you can't order a schedule change, North Carolina General Assembly has given you all authority to keep tabs on the city services. You all can hold hearings and hear from officers as to the functionality of the PD. I would say it's part of your duty to make sure the city services are top-notch. And that may be more than just listening to the administration of the city. Our hope is that you all will communicate your vision for a vibrant workplace where the employees feel vested
30 seconds.
and part of the mission of the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McGaha. Our next speaker is Rick Tullis.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is Rick Tullis. I'm the president of the Mountain Chapter of the North Carolina Police Benevolent Association. We represent over 17,000 members in North Carolina, several of which are Brevard officers, which brings me here tonight. The association exists to provide its membership with legal representation, legislative advocacy, as well as grievance resolution. When it comes to resolving grievances or complaints, we always prefer to work closely with law enforcement executives and government officials privately so as to reach an amicable agreement for each party. Over the last several years, we have received disturbing complaints from our members about the administration of the Brevard Police Department. We have diligently attempted to work through the administration and through the city attorney to resolve these concerns. The administration seems to be unwilling or unable to acknowledge that the Brevard Police Department is facing a severe dilemma regarding the morale issues and trust in the officers' leadership. Additionally, certain members of the administration have acted in a manner that appears to be retaliatory, specifically as it relates to abruptly changing the patrol schedule to a schedule that is untenable and negatively impacts the officers and their families. There has been no explanation or reason given to the officers as to why this has occurred. This change has come suddenly and without warning, immediately following an OSHA investigation that was brought forth by the concerns of members of that agency. Another equally and disturbing issue is the state of the evidence room. We have been made aware that there are several items of evidence missing, including money and drug evidence. When we brought this to the administration's attention, we were met with denials and stonewalling. And furthermore, the chief went on record recently with the media to say he was never made aware of the state of the evidence room. We have documents in our possession that are public record that contradict his statements. Not only was he aware, instead of working with his staff to resolve these issues, we have documents to show he acted in a manner to subvert and block the efforts of his staff. The importance of missing evidence and mismanagement of the evidence room cannot be understated. It directly impacts the integrity of any evidentiary value and impeaches the Brevard Police Department ability
30
to
seconds.
provide the district attorney with the means to successfully prosecute cases brought forth by the officers. I most urgently ask this town council, as within its authority through North Carolina General Statute 160A-80, to initiate an investigation, subpoena any records relating to the administration of the Brevard Police Department or misconduct as it relates to the obstruction of officers' abilities to uphold their oaths of office, retaliatory actions that have created a hostile work environment for the officers, and refusal to report as required to the district attorney the department's compromised ability to provide evidence in its criminal cases.
Time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Don Rogers.
Madam Mayor, Councilman, I'm Don Rogers. I live at 4445, actually, Gristmill View in Brevard. I'm on the board and volunteer with the Hunger Coalition of Transylvania County, which I hope you're at least somewhat familiar with. We have several programs. This year during the budgeting cycle, I submitted a grant request for $5,000 to fund our meal kit program. That's these meal kits that we, like HelloFresh meal kits that we hand out. And they go to the after-school programs and are taken to families, and they teach heart healthy, plant-based cooking. We requested $5,000 to provide 2,000 meals, very good deal, on this system, and we were denied. And I and my board have trouble understanding why that was true. We did investigate a little bit. I see that your support for the nonprofits has gone down quite a bit in the last 3 years. 140,000 2 years ago, 120,000 last year, and only 82,000 this year designated under 5,700 for nonprofits. So there's some budgetary, we understand. And so we were feeling a little better. However, if you look at the individuals of what you funded on that, with that, instead of us, you funded the Pisgah Conservancy, you funded SORBA, the Southern Off-Road Bicycle Association, both for more than $5,000. And it seems to us that that says your priorities are more on tourism and bicycling than feeding hungry families and kids in our community and teaching them how to cook, teaching them how to be more heart healthy and heart friendly. And it's something we do every day. This program has been funded by Dogwood originally with a $30,000 grant 3 years ago, but we've used that money. And now to keep it going, we've got to have more. and we can't continue without it. Now, we were lucky enough to get another grant for $5,000 to continue the program through Christmas, but after Christmas, we're dead in the water. We have no more money. I'm hoping you might be able to help with that. Maybe this was just an unfortunate oversight on the council's part, because I can't believe you prioritize tourism over feeding your own citizens. So if that's true, maybe you can help. We've still got till January to do that. Lacking that, perhaps you could lead us or head us, point us at somewhere we might also be funded again, a grant, a rich individual will, that's fine with us as well. But bottom line, we feel like this is not right. We certainly hope to, will reapply next year,
30 seconds.
but because the program has been, again, active for a couple of years. But without your help, it's possible that we will not be able to continue this the rest of the year, rest of the school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Our next speaker is Brent Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Brent Wilson. I've worked here at the police department for 13 years, and I've seen the morale in the police department go down in the years that I've been gone. I left in 2005. It's see the police officers having to struggle to have 2 men on the shift. When we were here, we had 5 men on the shift. The crime in the city of Brevard's not went down. It's not changed from when I was here. We had the same amount of crime, or it's probably more now than what it was. We have same amount of dope, I'm sure, that was here then. We don't have a drug enforcement team. I know that dope hadn't went down here. You know, I don't understand the city not having a drug enforcement team to back up with the county on the situation with the drug enforcement, because we had it here then. I done a lot of work in it then, and I don't understand why they don't think that we don't have it here now. It's blinding to me to see that it ain't here. I kind of, it hurts my heart to know that police officers don't do the funeral services anymore with the people that die here in Brevard. My address is 120 Orchid Heights Drive. I live out in the county. But, you know, we don't see city officers escorting funeral services through town anymore. That was a thing that I took heart in when I worked here. We did that. And I know a lot of the older officers that worked here was proud to do stuff for the people in the community, for people that lived here in Brevard, for their families, to do stuff like that. You know, to take their families to the funeral. And they don't do that here anymore in Brevard. I don't understand stuff like that. It's a sad day that our police officers don't have enough protection. That was something that was in my heart when I got hurt and I left. And now you don't have the people covered. It's not right. If somebody is to get out here and get hurt and you ain't got enough manpower to take care of that man or woman that's working out here on the street, it should be that we're all taken care of, each person. If you knew what happened to me, and I had people back me up, but if somebody got hurt out here on the street today, 2 people on the road is not enough. There was 5 come out on to help me the day that I got hurt, 5 people, and it took 5. So if it's something bad, it's going to take more than 2 people.
30 seconds.
I just wish y'all would pay attention to these older officers that have been here that have done the stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And that is everybody who signed up for a public comment. All right, at this point, we will move on to our certificates, award, and recognition. And we have one proclamation here today, and that is for Constitution Week. I'm going to ask the members of the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution, to join me up here. It is always wonderful. Every year we recognize Constitution Week. And, I was thinking about how special our Constitution is. That, how many countries have a document that starts with the words, "We the people"? I don't know how many, but we do. And that document has been the foundation of our government for 237 years. And so I encourage people, if you have not recently looked at our Constitution, take time this week and read it. And think about just how special the foundation of what we built this country on is all about. And with that, I am going to read the following proclamation. Proclamation number 2024 TAC 18, Constitution Week. Whereas September 17th, 2024 marks the 237th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore, I, Maureen Koploff, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Brevard, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23 as Constitution Week in the city of Brevard, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution that they had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. I am witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Brevard to be affixed the 16th day of September, 2020. Thank you very much, ladies, and this proclamation is for you. And at this point, I would like to ask the Daughters of the American Revolution if you would like to say a few words.
Sure. It was our privilege, and I think I read correctly in 1955 that we, the daughters, asked Congress to look into establishing Constitution Week, and it's been held ever since. And as local daughters, we have gone to all the schools and made posters, and you might have seen some of them around town, and all the schools are participating in Constitution Week this week, and we look to grow it more and more every year.
Well, that's wonderful, and teaching our young folks about it is so important. And we are so lucky to have our local chapter, and we are so lucky for all of the things, all of the patriotic work that you do in our community. Thank you very much.
It's our honor.
I appreciate all of you. Thank you. Okay, and we will now move on to a special presentation. And this is the Esteto Trail Unfinished Section Review and Next Step Discussion. And our city manager is going to lead this discussion.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to make I don't want to say short presentation, a medium presentation. Aaron's going to come up and pull up the story page for the Esteto Trail so we can have a few little visuals while I talk. But I want to preface my comments by saying I was hoping that this presentation would be a little more baked than it is, but as you can imagine from the public comments, there was another matter that I prioritized here over the last few weeks. Also, I passed out an updated version of the table, so please use the one that was at your place. It contains some more up-to-date information than the one that was passed out in the package. Since the last time we talked, there's been a couple of new pieces of information, but I confess there are still more to come. And so although I think we'll be able to have a more informed conversation than we did 3 weeks ago, we might need to wait a little longer to have the ultimate conversation because, as I said, there's more information to come. The Parks and Trails Committee was asked this question that I'm going to ask you today a few weeks ago, and I'll share with you their feedback as I go along. What I'm hoping we can do tonight is I report this new information to you, and we have a discussion about which segment you all would like for us to prioritize here in the year to come. I know that we're not going to ignore the ones that aren't named the top priority, and if we have an opportunity, we will pursue that opportunity, but I think it would be helpful for staff if you all could identify the one you want us to dedicate most of our resources to. And then in a moment, Paul is going to stand up and tell us about one of those opportunities that we'd like to get your permission to pursue. And as Gary's motion revealed earlier, it will be a request to apply for the Great State Trails Program grant. Okay, so a quick reminder to you, council, and our audience. The Esteto Trail has 8 outstanding projects to complete it. 6 of those are active. 3 of those 6 are constructing new segments. One of the sections that's about to be constructed, Tannery North, is funded, and we're waiting for it to start. We turned that project over to NCDOT because of the complexity of doing construction on a brownfield, but also because they're more familiar with administering federal grants, which is the source of funding for this project. It's something that they're more familiar with and they're more capable of doing. But in exchange for their expertise, both construction and administrative expertise, we've traded timeliness. And so this one's been delayed a little bit, and as I'll mention earlier when I get to it, it's been delayed again. The 2 remaining construction projects after Tannery North, Main Street to Mary C. Jenkins and Rosman Highway to the high school, are the subject of our 30% design contract that you approved a few weeks ago. You agreed to spend money from our multi-use path for this, and I've signed the contract. But there's another possibility that I'll ask Paul to stand up and describe to you now.
Actually, Aaron.
Oh, excuse me. So sorry, Aaron.
Yes, so it is the Great Trails State Program grant, which is a grant opportunity through the North Carolina Division of Parks and Recreation. If you remember, we had the Year of the Trail in North Carolina recently, and part of that is this $25 million for planning, design, and constructing and maintaining trails throughout the state. The program's deadline was originally this month, but they have pushed that back to November. So we have a little bit more time to try to get an application together, and because of the minimums and maximums of what you can ask for the different types of asks, planning and design, and engineering, construction, they all have different thresholds for minimum projects and maximum project costs. We are suggesting that we change that 30% design contract to a 100% design contract for these 2 sections and use the grant to fund the majority of that. We are a Tier 2 county, so we have to match 1 non-state dollar for every 2 state dollars that we would get from the grant. But the way it looks like, how much that looks like it would cost, we would actually, our matching funds for that grant for 100% designs would be less than we're already committed to spending for 30% designs. So that's the resolution that would be before you later in the meeting.
Thank you, sir. So if you give us permission to pursue this grant and we get it, we'll be able to save more of our own money for other things. But if we don't get it, we'll proceed as we had originally planned. We have more information on the cost of right-of-way acquisition for Main Street, from Main Street to MCJCC, which I called you all earlier today to share with you. If you extrapolate that information and apply it to the other properties that are along the presumed right-of-way there, I'm projecting that we're going to have $500,000 or more of right-of-way acquisition cost. And of course, the challenge we've discussed before, and that's sort of the intangible cost of using eminent domain, which we will probably have to for this section. But for what it's worth, this segment was the segment that was endorsed by the Parks and Trails Committee as their top priority. The last construction segment is the Rosman Highway to the high school. Fewer properties to acquire right-of-way on, but longer distances to cover. We have no idea how much this right-of-way acquisition will cost, but I suspect it'll be a similar order of magnitude to the other section. And of course, the 30 or 100% design, whichever we get, will inform this substantially. Okay, if we can go back to Tannery North, please, Aaron. I guess I should have shared this information before. As I alluded to earlier, there's been an update in the timeline for this project. As you read in the staff report, the let date for this contract has been pushed off to fall of next year, so fall of 2025, which means it probably won't be open until spring of 2026. I attribute this delay primarily to the funding source, as I mentioned earlier, the federal carbon reduction grant. These are funds that must be released by the federal government before their local recipient, in our case NCDOT, can use them. And sometimes their release is delayed if there's uncertainty in the federal budget. And if you've watched the news, you know that there's been quite a lot of uncertainty in the federal budget the last few years. But fortunately, it's looking like these funds are about to be released, or at least NCDOT thinks so, because they are now willing to proceed. They're confident enough that the funds are going to get released, so they are starting this project, and of course, it's going to take them a little while to design and engineer the project. So the tentative date to let the contract, as I said, is fall of next year. This project is also affected by the bat moratorium that we've heard of for this area. And so construction can only take place in the wintertime. That's another reason for the fall of 2025 let date. Staff are actually in talks with NCDOT to see if we can do some of the preparatory site work this season. So that once NCDOT's difficult construction starts next year, it can go a little quicker. So we probably don't have much hope of moving up the let date, but perhaps we can create some conditions out there that will accelerate the construction once it starts. So stay tuned for more information from staff on that possibility. All right, moving on to the next category are projects that I'm calling enhancements to current infrastructure. As the name suggests, these are enhancements to infrastructure that's already on the ground that'll make that infrastructure function more like a trail and be more accessible to bicyclists and pedestrians. There are two of these projects, the Rosman Highway crossing and the R5800 project on Asheville Highway. I'll start with the Rosman Highway crossing. Our conceptual designs have been approved by NCDOT, and we have sufficient info to apply for the necessary encroachment permit with them for this project. At the moment, we're trying to barter to get this one done. So the projected project will be a pedestrian stoplight there on that space that's denoted on the map. And that's not a typical thing for NCDOT, so I'm very glad that they gave us permission to do that. But it's kind of a specialized construction, and so their forces, their contractors are more capable of installing that than we are. And so we have agreed to, in exchange for them paying for and installing this stoplight, offered to build a sidewalk, actually two sidewalks, one on that side of the road where the cursor is, and then a smaller one over on the other side to the shopping center with the Subway sandwich shop where the cursor is now. And NCDOT doesn't want to build a signal to nowhere, and so they want to make sure that there are some pedestrian amenities on both sides of the road so that users of the trail and users of this new stoplight can have some additional infrastructure to walk on. And we have offered to build that in exchange for them installing the stoplight, and we are waiting to hear whether they're going to accept our offer. Next is our 5,800 betterments. If you'll recall, Transylvania County Tourism Development Authority gave us a $75,000 grant to study these improvements. We've spent about $12,000 or $15,000 having TPD, our trail designer, sort of reach into their bag of possibilities, traffic safety enhancements, trail features that might work on this project, and approach NCDOT to find out which ones of those would be acceptable and that NCDOT might be willing to add to the plans for this project. And if NCDOT gives us the thumbs up on any of those, we'll use the remaining dollars on that contract to have TPD actually design them, actually create the blueprints for those so that NCDOT can in turn update their plans. I'm about to get out over my skis here and start describing things that are kind of technical, and so Christy and the TPD folks, if they're watching, they're probably about to start cringing, but I'll do my best to describe some of the options that they are looking at. The first would be to move the roundabouts away from the main thoroughfare a little bit so that they are farther away from the traffic circles that are going to go in, so that when you are crossing the roundabout, you are farther away on your bicycle, you are farther away from the motorist who's looking in two different directions trying to navigate the roundabout. They've also suggested a couple of locations where the trail should be separated from the road, either via a planting strip or some sort of bar or visual barrier that would serve to guide both the motorist and the bicyclist, and Aaron has focused in on the intersection where that treatment is proposed. And they've also suggested that we go to NCDOT and ask if we can remove some of the slip lanes. So a slip lane is kind of like an exit lane for the motorist. There's one right there in front of the gas station that turns right into the Deer Lake neighborhood. But we've also heard from trail users that that is one of the most treacherous intersections right there because of those cars that are slowing down and making that turn at high speed. And so by eliminating that slip lane, the cars will be forced to slow down more and pay more attention to that turn as they make it, and hopefully provide a safer environment for other users of the trail. So those are a few of the things that they are exploring, and we're going to take to the state and ask them to include in their plans. The big ask, though, of the state is to install a PHB, or pedestrian hybrid beacon, somewhere near the Osborne Road roundabout to make that crossing as safe as it can be. And we're actually going to deal with this one a little bit differently because we think we can get it funded using someone else's money, not ours. So there's been kind of a weird bureaucratic change with this project that, probably most people wouldn't notice or even care about, but it will benefit us. And that is that NCDOT has changed the pot of money that they're going to use for this project from a pot that was endowed with state dollars to a pot that was endowed with federal dollars. And, I mentioned earlier some of the drawbacks of having your projects funded by federal dollars, but they get money from the federal government every year, and, projects across the state are funded with federal dollars. But the reason why that's important for this project is because when it is funded with federal dollars, it opens up an additional set of requirements that you have to meet. And in this case, the federal requirement that they have to meet is that recreational amenities can't be impacted. And if they are, the project has to fund their like replacement. And in this case, if the roundabout goes forward as planned, we would be losing a red light signal. We'd be losing the ability to stop traffic on the trail. And so what we're angling to do is get the project to pay for that pedestrian hybrid beacon somewhere in that vicinity, so that on the new trail, users can stop traffic like users of the current trail can. And so that's a big one. You know, the exact place that it's placed is a pretty significant decision, and, you know, we'll have to consult with the engineers to find the ideal place, but we're looking to have that one, the cost of that one included in the overall project budget, and therefore funded by NCDOT themselves rather than our local money. Okay. But outside that particular beacon, the rest of those improvements that I mentioned earlier will have to be funded with local money. And so whether that's money from our budget, whether that's the remaining $750,000 that the Tourism Development Authority pledged to support the Acosta Trail, whether it's Friends of Acosta Trail money that they repurpose for this, I don't know, but it's got to be local. It can't be state or federal money. All right, the last category is segments that are reaching the end of their useful life. Fortunately, there's only one project that falls into this category right now, and that is the boardwalks, 2 of them, that are behind McDonald's that connect the trail to Poplar Street and beyond. We've engaged an expert to assess these structures for us, but we're still waiting on him to come out and provide that assessment. But he's a specialist, so he's got a pretty busy schedule, so we kind of work on his schedule, so that's okay. But we're waiting on him to tell us how much life the bridge has left and to give us an estimate of what it would cost to replace it. I just want to reiterate to everyone watching at home that the structure is safe to use. Don't worry about that. It's not that far gone, though perhaps a few rotting boards on top may present a small hazard. So just use caution as you're using those boardwalks. We replace those as needed, but they pop up pretty quickly. Full replacement of these boardwalks is likely to be an expensive endeavor, but we won't know how expensive until we receive that report. If it's what I expect, then an alternative alignment, like the one that Councilmember Baker proposed at the Parks and Trails Committee a few weeks ago, might be worth considering. And so his proposal is to use the abandoned rail bed that sort of runs past the back corner of Aldi's there, past those houses on Poplar Lane, past the pond of the cottages of Brevard, and spits out there on Pender Lane, where it would be directly across from the existing trail. We think that's a pretty reasonable realignment to consider, particularly if it's uneconomical to replace the bridges. But there are some significant implications to doing that, like floodplain matters, right-of-way acquisition, the stability of the existing rail bed that's there, the berm that it's on. So we'd have to get into it all in order to realignment there, and we can do it, and it might be the more economical thing to do, but want to wait and hear about the condition of the boardwalks first. So unfortunately, more info still needed on that segment before we can make an informed decision, but we are waiting on it, and we'll share it with you as soon as we get it. So those are the updates I have. Other than the grant approval later on, no action needed tonight. Just want to hear your thoughts on which project we should focus our time on. As I said earlier, of course, we'll pounce on opportunities as they come along, but it would be helpful to know what your priority segment is.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I will open it up for council's discussion and hopefully have them provide the information that you need. We will start with Mr. Baker.
Sure, thank you. And thanks for that very detailed update. Love it. Couple of questions from me. First of all, I wondered the sort of promise that we've gotten from DOT on the Rosman Highway crossing, that they have approved that crossing. Do we have that promise in writing? Well, I would say if we can get that in writing as soon as we can, I think I've learned a couple times in dealing with the trail and in particular with dealing with DOT, sometimes we hear things that sound positive and then a year later we hear something very different. So, as long as we can hold their feet to the fire a little bit, that's probably going to be a theme of my feedback here a little bit. R 5800, I feel like we need to fight a little harder to talk about the funding of that particular section. And I have a really hard time understanding how the Department of Transportation doesn't have a responsibility to replace, yes, but also enhance the transportation infrastructure that is already along their roadway, and in most cases, in their right-of-way. And so the idea that local dollars are the only thing that are going to be able to fund those improvements just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And in some cases, we're not asking for, the fanciest, best. We're not asking for a bridge over Asheville Highway. We're asking for basic safety improvements for a transportation infrastructure that is already there, that they are going to impact with their project. So I don't know, I have a lot of confidence in our staff to push back on that, but I just want to encourage even more of that because and I don't know all the ins and outs, but I just have a really hard time understanding how that isn't their responsibility to fund that. While we're in this section, I will say that the losing the slip lanes is a great idea. We should do that tomorrow. And also, if there's some of those sections, if we could implement a no turn on red, that would, coming off of no right turn on red, particularly with Deer Lake, that would improve safety of that section immensely. Because as you're traveling, on the path, sort of from Aldi over towards the community college, you might have a green light and a signal to go, but as people are turning right onto Asheville Highway from Deer Lake, they're looking to their left and creeping out into the crosswalk, and in some cases they have no idea that there's traffic coming along the pathway.
A no right on red from Deer Lake on to Asheville Highway?
Correct, yeah. And there's probably some other intersections where that would make more sense as well. I would encourage us to look into that. I do have a question about the sidewalk, and I'm jumping around, I'm sorry, but the sidewalk construction along Rosman Highway, because I'm pretty familiar with that area, and there's a pretty significant drop-off headed up towards that gas station. And I'm just, are we sure that we have enough room along there to construct a sidewalk without building a really expensive retaining wall?
Well, we have 100% design plans for that, so I'd have to look back on the plans.
Okay.
We do have construction plans for that.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested in what that looks like, because I walked to the end of that trail a fair amount, and I always take a look to the left, and there's not a whole lot of room there. So I'd be interested in how they're, without realigning the highway, which I'm sure we're not doing, how we would fit a sidewalk in there. My last question, I think, is pertains to the grant. And I'm just curious about, so we're moving from 30% design plans, which we've already funded, to a request for the grant to pay for 100%. Does that mean that we are stopping work on the 30% design process until we hear? Okay.
Well, not until we hear.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think that one would just replace the other. So you can continue work now, and if we don't get the grant, nothing has changed.
Okay.
If we do get the grant, then we just gotta replace it with this. He's gonna have to get the 30%.
Anyway,
Anyway.
right. So he's going to continue working on the 30% design. Okay, that's good. I didn't want us to stop for one thing. Yeah, and I think, lastly, I'll try to answer your question in terms of priority. And it's really hard, I think, for me to choose. I think the Rosman Highway crossing is incredibly important, in terms of opening up that other section. I also see a ton of people already using that Tannery South section, and using it to access the businesses that are along Rosman Highway. So in terms of a functional benefit, I think completing that crossing is important. And so I think that would be if I had to choose, which I don't like choosing, but that would be my choice. Knowing that the Tannery North section is going to be underway, improves that as well. So I think that's it for me.
Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, I would, on the R 5800, I would like to echo and reinforce Mr. Baker's comments that I really don't understand how DOT's improvement, traffic flow improvement is not allowing for the safe use of an existing public amenity. I find that concerning and also confusing as well. I don't understand why it's our responsibility to enhance their project. They should, seems like to me somebody missed a boat somewhere in their planning process. Also, as far as the present location, and I know staff probably knows what I'm getting ready to say, we have explored moving that path behind Enmark and businesses there that to get it off of that busy thoroughfare as much as possible. And I know we've made some progress on that in the past, but I'm just wondering if that was still being considered by our planners, or if that was even something that they're made aware of. So I think it'd be good to get the trail off that thoroughfare. As far as where I think the trail should go next, I'd like to see the trail not piecemeal. I think the missing blanks need to be filled in. And it sounds like Tannery North is in action, and it should be something that's going to happen. So that's going to get one blank filled in. And I guess the next blank is from Main Street to Mary C. Jenkins for me. So that would be my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Mr. Morrow?
A lot of good comments. I do like I think we try to follow the path of Gary's recommendation from Main Street to Mary C. Jenkins, which is if I understand it, that's the committee's recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I concur with that. Within and I know this wouldn't happen in this phase, but I didn't see here within Tannery Park the connection to Duckworth. Is that even being considered?
Not yet, it isn't. That wasn't part of the main spine that we were.
Correct.
Right now.
But we haven't forgotten about that, right?
Nope.
Because I think as far as access to Tannery, once it's complete, that's going to be
We were just concentrating on trying to.
correct.
Get
Okay, all right. I'm with you, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Moore? Ms. Holder?
Thank you, Wilson and Aaron and everybody for the presentation. If the grant that you noted is not approved, how will the funding happen?
We'll have to come back and either ask for more money from you all, from our multi-use path fund, or future allocation in the future budget, or keep beating the bushes for other grant sources to pay for the 100% design. But one way or the other, we'll have 30%, because you all have already approved that.
Okay. You're saying we've already approved it for this? We have money for it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if we get the grant, so then what will we do with the money that's already been approved?
We'd save that and spend it on something else.
All right, let's get a police car.
Well, we'd spend it on another trail-related
Just
item.
All right. The lights at the crossing, I think that's what Aaron was referring to, across Rosman Highway. And Aaron, was it your suggestion that North Carolina DOT pay for that? Is that what you're saying?
Me?
Yes.
Sorry, there's two Aarons.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Baker man.
Yeah, I mean, if we can work that sidewalk exchange where we build a couple sidewalks and they pay for the crossing, then I think that's a pretty good deal. I just have some concerns about that sidewalk construction and making sure we can actually make that happen. But, I mean, yeah, I also sort of feel torn on that one just because I feel like, again, Rosman Highway is a DOT road.
Well, I
highway.
agree with you. That's why I was asking. I want to make sure that I understood what you were saying.
Right.
And I agree with that. And the other crossing that I'm thinking about is going across from Mary C. Jenkins, across Cashier's Valley Road to Tannery. Since those condos are there now, it's more difficult to see coming around that corner. So will there be some type of cross caution there, or lights or whatever?
I don't know if there'll be lights, but there'll definitely be treatments on the road.
Well, not a light, but I think it's some of the crossings that you can press a button and then you get this big blinking. Tell me what it's called. I know there's a name for it. A caution light for people who are crossing and walking?
Right. Yeah, RFB. So,
You know where I'm talking about?
yes,
It's gonna be lower there.
the Manual of Uniform Traffic Calming Devices and the sort of, I can't remember what the other book is called, but the sort of guideline of treatments that you're to install on trails. They usually have some minimum criteria that a road or a trail needs to meet before it's eligible for that kind of light. And I don't know if that crossing meets that criteria. So it's possible that we'd have an RHB there, like the one we have, for example, up on Probart Street, but I don't know that for sure. But what it will for sure have is a lot of signs and a lot of paint and other treatments on the road so that both motorists and trail users can see exactly where the cross is and use the appropriate amount of caution.
So there's a possibility there will not be anything there, as far as,
No light, yes, ma'am,
No.
that is a possibility, unknown at this time.
okay. Is that something that can be studied to see?
Yes, we will look at the traffic counts that are available, and if we need to, take some more, the speeds and volumes that come down that road, and see if it would be eligible for that type of treatment.
Okay, thank you. As far as priority, I don't know if going from Main Street to Mary C. Jenkins, wherever it leads off, I'd like to see it consecutive building or construction. So I think that's where we are. So I agree with that.
All right, Mr. Wise?
All right. Thanks for the helpful presentation. How long has this Great Trails State grant been in existence? Is it new or is it?
Yes, this is its first and only year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not a recurring.
So we really have no metric on our,
The fact that they extended the deadline makes me think they did not get
Yeah.
a lot of great projects submitted already. But
Okay.
that's pure speculation on my part.
Sure. And then, I don't remember if it was Aaron or Gary that asked, but in terms of moving forward with the 30%, there would be no stipulations if we got the grant upon the engineer. We can move forward. We're confident we can still use the same engineer, whether that engineer is doing the 30% or the 100%. The state's not going to come back and say we have to have their engineer. Okay. I'm also kind of in favor of really looking at the Rosman crossing pretty carefully. If it's engineered and ready to go, I would love to get that underway, because I think it's going to take time for people to get used to as well. That's good, if we have to put a pedestrian light in there, I want people traveling that road in cars to kind of get used to that idea as well. Wilson, you may have said this, but there's a lot of information. Do we know when the boardwalk assessment might start happening? Okay, so pretty soon. I also agree with everyone on the R5800 pushback. I agree with everything that's been said about that. And finally, this is a hard choice, but I'm also kind of leaning towards doing the Main Street to Mary C. Jenkins connector now, or as a priority, and moving with the, moving towards the high school after that. That's it.
All right. I think you got what you needed, Mr. Manager.
Could I make one more comment? It'll be quick. In our priorities, I was thinking more of like new sections, not of existing sections. And I'm not sure whether that was whether your question included the R5800 and the potential realignment.
Yeah, it was kind of a vague and ambiguous question, I guess, but I feel like the feedback I got is informative enough for us to work with.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll just add to my comments that I believe that R5800 section and making those improvements should be a major focus for it. And because, the Acosta Trail, there's some estimates that like 1.5 million people are going to use that trail when it's completed every year. And, just to put that into context, like I think Pisgah usually estimates like 6 to 8 million people visit our little section of Pisgah every year. So imagine, the level of traffic on that piece of, trail infrastructure along Asheville Highway, headed into our downtown, by the way, is incredibly important. So, again, that's an existing section, so they're all important, but that one's very important to me.
Got it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Baker. All right, moving on. Let's see, what do we have? Oops. Okay. All right, we are now on the consent and information. Following items are on the consent agenda. 1, the tax settlement report for August 2024. 2, the property tax releases August of 2024. 3, the official city-sponsored special event listing. 4, proclamation number 2024 TAC 19, honoring the 156th anniversary of Mud Creek Missionary Baptist Association. 5, the Acosta Trail Advisory Board minutes of May 29th, 2024. 6, Council Downtown Master Plan Committee minutes of June 12th, 2024. 7, Council Public Works and Utilities Committee minutes August 7th, 2024. And 8, Council Housing Committee minutes of August 13th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent is approved. All right, we have no unfinished business. We will move on to the one item of new business, which was the Great Trails State Grant. Mr. Manager, did you want to say anything before I open it for a motion?
No, ma'am, you have a copy of the proposed resolution in front of you.
Do I have a motion to approve the proposed resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Daniel?
I think we need to jump on it. Sounds like they're waiting on us.
Mr. Baker?
I'll just say, Aaron, I know you said this was the one and only time that they were going to do this, but I think they should do it all the time. That's it.
Mr. Wise?
I agree, but no other comment.
Ms. Holder?
Ditto, thank you, no other comment.
Mr. Morrow?
Well, I just think that Brevard does have a story and what it's done on the trails. And so that should set you up as something that's worthy. So I agree with you, Aaron. So good luck to you, buddy.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed. All right, we are now on remarks and future agenda considerations. All right, well, we will start with Mr. Wise.
Only one remark is that our moms are up at Clemson Plaza, which is awesome, a new mural. So I was walking down the street and kind of late at night, and I saw that, and it was like a beacon of hope in our community. It was great. Maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, but it's cool to see. So that's awesome, and that's all I've got today.
Ms. Holder?
I agree. It's good to see Moms Mabley, who my dad knew well and passed on at least one of her albums to me. So I still have it. If she were not colorful in her language, I would pipe it in. And she could be a little colorful, but funny.
Yep.
And I also want to thank Mayor and Denise for the Mud Creek Association for the resolution. Thank you so much. And we begin meeting tomorrow for 156 sessions. And in case you're not familiar with it, it's the Mud Creek Missionary Baptist Association. And we fund and we help people in missions, both local and foreign. And so, and we get together and come together for that, to celebrate, report, but to keep ministry of missions going. So thank you.
Mr. Morrow?
You know, it's great. Moms Mabley is amazing. Finally get some recognition, and talking with our artist friend, Mr. Smith, as a relation, as a connection. It was interesting to hear from him why they picked that picture of her.
Yes, why?
Because, you know, we all think of Moms Mabley in their frumpy dress and all. They've got her like she really is. And that was a family selection, and I just think that's nice to know.
Yeah.
You know, so. But it was a wonderful, I think, weekend of celebrating art, and what a way to celebrate it through her. So, thank you.
Mr. Daniel?
Yeah, I think it was perfect timing for Moms Mabley to be finished in time for the Plein Air Festival that we had, which I highly recommend. I think it's, you talk about the uniqueness of Brevard. I think that festival certainly is one of the more unique municipal festivals that you'll ever be able to go to, and I would suggest that you come next year.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I'll just repeat that seeing moms up there is really great. And every time I drive by it now or ride by it, I think about all the people coming through town that probably, hopefully when they get to their destination, pull out their phone and Google, So we complain about that Google thing sometimes, but, it's amazing that there's a lot of people that still don't know, Moms Mabley and that story. And it's amazing that, just that encounter with a mural as you're coming through town will lead to a lot of people learning about her and that history. So it's great to see. Couple other things from me. One of the public comments that we heard about nonprofit funding partners reminded me that we when we were in the budget process last year, we struggled, obviously, with that part, and, I think, we discussed that we needed a better process for that entire part of the budget. And so I know it's not quite budget season yet, but it's never too early to get ready. And so I think, hopefully we're going to have a better process for that next year.
Yes, sir. We've talked about that a couple times at the HR and Finance Committee. They've sent us back with some revisions, and we've made those, and that is on the schedule here for the months to come, and we hope to have that in place by the spring so that we can incorporate it into this year's budget talks.
Great. Just two more things for me. I did want to take a second to just acknowledge that, what a gift and how proud I am of the trail system that we have in Brevard already. And, the advantages of the Acosta Trail for Brevard, I feel like we're very well positioned to take advantage of that. In some ways better than our neighbors over there in Hendersonville, because we have that existing trail. And I know I've been a sometimes critic of the pace of building on that trail, and I just want to acknowledge that, what we do have is really amazing and such a benefit to the city, and I'm very thankful for the city leaders that got us to this point, and had the forethought and the vision to put that in place so that we're all now benefiting from it. So, every little section that we build, it's just incredible how much use it gets right away. Even, the Tannery South, which, you could see as sort of disconnected from the rest of it, but I mean, it's amazing how many people are using that part of it. So, I'm glad we're continuing to make progress and talk about it. And somewhat too detailed for this section of the meeting, but also important, is the beacon lights on Brevard, the ones facing the music center, are not working right now. So I think it must be a bulb issue or something, but that's it.
Mr. City Attorney.
Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity to express to council and to the public, and I was hoping to be able to talk to everybody, but they decided they wanted to leave early, that any concerns that you've heard tonight about the police department, every concern that has been brought to staff's attention has been very carefully looked at and very carefully investigated. I will also let you know here in a public setting that there were some allegations made regarding evidence and retaliation. I've done an extensive review and found no evidence of that whatsoever. I offered under very carefully closed opportunities on 2 different occasions to listen to any other specific allegations that may be out there, and both meetings were canceled by the PBA at the last minute. So I'm still willing to listen to any sort of allegations that may be brought out, but I wanted to assure you that the administration of the city is taking each and every one of these allegations seriously and is investigating them thoroughly. One of them was addressed regarding the mold issues. That's the primary reason that you were asked earlier this year to approve a new place for them to go. So I'm not really sure what the genesis of some of the statements that were brought forth tonight were. I'm not sure of what the provenance is of them. But again, we are taking these very seriously. We want to ensure that there's a non-retaliatory workplace. We'll continue to do that. And I hope we can get any issues resolved. I just wanted to assure you of all that. I'll also remind you, we do have 2 closed sessions, none of which are related to that matters that we heard about tonight.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Manager?
No, ma'am.
Okay. and just, I will just reiterate, we had a wonderful festival this weekend, and I want to thank Heart of Brevard, our partner who really went all out and put it together, I can't speak French, in plein air outdoor festival. And I talked to a lot of the artists. We had artists, I think 28 artists, and they came from all over. They weren't just local. And the feedback I heard from them was that this was one of their favorite places to come to because they were treated so well by the community. And so that's just a testament to everybody. But the organization of the festival was great. Heart of Brevard did great. A thank you to the police department that was out there, a thank you to the fire department, and a thank you to the public works department. And if I forgot some department that was out there helping, thank you to all of you. But those are the ones that I actually saw out there making it happen. And the other thing was I have gotten nothing but compliments on our new mural. Loretta Aiken and that wonderful mural. We made that decision, I think 4 or 5 months ago. Planning Department got the grant, so thank you, Planning Department. I know that was a quick turnaround grant. That's how we paid for that mural. But everybody is just absolutely thrilled about it. And the artist that painted it, he actually came back and said that this was like the best place ever, and he wants to come back again. So it's just very, very positive, and it's just another way to really commemorate and enhance honoring our history and somebody that is from here and all. So I just wanted to point out that, usually I get, good feedback, bad feedback on stuff, but it has been overwhelmingly positive feedback that I've been getting. So thank you to everybody that made that possible, the festival, and everybody that worked so hard to get the funding and to make our new mural possible. Also want to mention, I'll sort of build on what Aaron said, and that is, we really are recognized for our trail system. Paul Ray and I were out at the Great Trail State Conference last week, the ones that's giving that $25 million out in grants. And we talked about our trail system. We talked about the Esteto Trail. We talked about Bracken, and we talked about the Acosta Trail. There was no other group out there that had the breadth of what we were talking about. And that includes the big players. I mean, we had the big metropolitan areas there. But in terms of a small town, and what we have accomplished, and the vision that we are bringing forward, it was remarkable, and it was very, very special. Everybody, Brevard was recognized almost in every single session. They mentioned Brevard for some reason. So that's a testament to the fact that, yes, we have been working on this trail system for 20 years. It's the vision of leaders like Mac Morrow, who has been leading this effort for 2 decades now, I think. But it's the leaders before us that were smart enough to obtain Bracken. It was the leaders that hooked us into Pisgah National Forest that allowed us then to get the grants for the Acosta Trail. It all builds together. And yes, we've got a lot more that we want to do, but that vision is out there, and each step is getting us closer. But we are right up there with all of the trails within the state of North Carolina. We are recognized as one of the leaders. And so thank you to everybody, to all of the leadership and the staff work that has gone in to making that happen. It was impressive last week. So thank you all. And I think with that, it is time to go into our closed session. Do I have a motion to go into closed session for pending, property acquisition?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's please clear the room and turn off the broadcast.